everyone. Welcome to the Gershon Wachtel Hour, starring Keren Wachtel.
And co-starring Gershon Wachtel.
It reminds me of a saying that I made up. If you ever get credit for doing something you didn't do, take it anyway.
Okay.
Anyway, so tonight, do we have a theme for tonight, Isaiah?
Yeah, I think you're supposed to be telling everyone your story.
Oh, my life story. Oh my gosh, I should have prepared for it.
Well, you've prepared for 70 years, so.
Okay, so we're going to start off. What I'm going to do is, anyone who's been in our modest little apartment may have noticed a lot of cups in the corner. And the cups are from every city around the world that I have performed. And when I perform, I tell my life story in between music. So we'll start off with a little music, then I'll do a little talking, then we'll do some music, then we'll do a little talking. Okay, so the story begins. Most of you have heard many of the parts of the stories. I'm basically tonight going to just put the pieces together for you. So I was born in Niagara Falls, New York, and our family didn't keep any Jewish things whatsoever, like nothing. And the only thing I knew about being Jewish was do things to give the Jewish people a good name. Like, don't go to jail or something like that, because that brings everybody down. But if you win a Nobel Prize, it builds everybody up. So that's the only thing I learned from my mother about being Jewish. So when I was 10 years old, my mother was given a piano that has 44 keys, and she sent me for a piano lesson. And I had been playing the violin in school at that time. And my violin teacher, I'll just tell you very quickly, her name was Miss Bond. And I can't remember her first name, but
It doesn't matter.
It really doesn't matter. And after all these years, I decided I wanted to look up Miss Bond because she was so beautiful. I thought she was the most lovely woman in the whole world. I'd like to see what she actually looked like to now fourth grade eyes. And she had just died like 6 months before I looked it up. And she dedicated her life to teaching music to children. And she would have been very proud to know that one of her students made good. But anyway, so I took violin lessons, and I went for a piano lesson. And from that moment on, all I've wanted to do my entire life is play the piano. I just love playing the piano. And I kept the violin and the piano going for a while. Then we tried trumpet and violin, and trumpet and piano. That didn't work. Then I did drums in school, and I played the kettle drums for 6 years in school. This is going to go boom, 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 and but piano was my thing. I mentioned this the other night that when I was about 15, my father was hospitalized, and unfortunately we had to sell our house and move into a little tiny apartment. And my mother broke the news to me that we can't afford piano lessons anymore. And when my teacher heard about it, he said, listen, he owns a bar, and if I can go in every Saturday morning, forgive me up there, every Saturday morning to take an inventory of the bottles, he'll give me a free piano lesson. So instead of saying, well, if I have to do something for the piano lesson, well, forget about it. I like a little soldier, every Saturday morning I got up and took a bus downtown and pounded bottles. Anyway, I'll play something else now. Graduated high school, and I went to university. I was a piano major in university, and I thought university was just for having fun and going to the bars on the weekend. And after the first semester, when I was put on, what's it called? If you don't straighten up, you're out of here. Whatever that's called, I can't remember what it's called. It doesn't matter. Everybody knows what it is. Right. And half the people here have been on it. But anyway.
Probation.
Probation, right. And my teacher pulled me aside, my piano teacher, and said, you know, I don't think you are a piano major material. You should switch majors. And it was like a slap in the face. No way. There's no possible way that I'm going to quit playing the piano. And that's what I needed to get me in shape. And I had a few more teachers that were quite inspirational, just the right teacher at the right time. And I graduated from this university. It's Fredonia State University, just south of Buffalo. In the state university system, it's the music school. And I used to practice 6 hours a day. Imagine, I'd wake up and play scales for an hour, and then catch an hour or two in the afternoon, and 3 hours after dinner. I practiced and practiced and practiced. And okay, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I could spend hours just on my Fredonia experience. Graduated. Now, my teacher said to me, her name was Miss Sorrell. Miss Sorrell said to me, you know, you're like a wild animal, and I think we need to tame you somehow. So I have a teacher at the Manhattan School of Music, and I want you to go there to get a master's degree, and she'll sit on you. And I had the idea that, you know what, I want to go to Israel. And I think the reason, of the many reasons why I wanted to go to Israel, was that, you know, when you walk into school the first day of kindergarten, you know that you got 6 grades there, then you're going to have 2 grades of junior high, then you're going to have 4 grades of senior high, and 4 years of college. You're always in these little boxes. And all of a sudden, when you graduate from university, it's like, hey, I can do anything or go anywhere I want. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to exert myself, and I am going to go to Israel. I didn't know what you do when you get there, but I'm going to do it. I came to Israel, and everything okay, honey?
Yes.
Okay. I came to Israel, and I was on a kibbutz. And I'm telling you, Chaya, if you could move the camera, because I'm going to demonstrate something. So in the kibbutz, I had a job. It was waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, over here, this away. Okay, not that way.
Just go that way.
Right over here. Okay. Hi, everybody. So my job was to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and there was a truck driving with a trailer in the back. And my job was to pick up rocks and throw it in that trailer for 4 hours, then have breakfast. And I said to myself, this doesn't seem like the kind of a job a pianist should be having. So after a few months, I left. But I remember writing to my mother, telling her that, you know, I really like it here. One day I hope to live here. And, you know, I've said many times, when you write something down, amazingly, it comes true. And that's what Chaya and I are doing right now, living here.
Still picking up rocks.
Pardon me?
Still picking up rocks?
Yeah. Every time I see a rock in Israel, I just look for a truck to throw it at. Anyway, so came home, and I was very interested in Jewish things. I got every book I could on Jewish spies, Jewish history, Israeli history, and I will continue the next chapter after I play something for you. so I came back to Niagara Falls, and I was taking Hebrew lessons from an Israeli guy, and he had to drop off a term paper at the University of Buffalo, and he was going to a place called Chabad House. I had never heard of it before. I said, "What is it?" He goes, "It's a student organization. You stop in. It's really a good place." This was truly a matter of a slip of the lip can sink a ship, because if he had said, "Oh, it's a horrible place, don't go there," things might have been different. But he told me about that it was a good place, and one Sunday afternoon I was driving around Buffalo, and I thought, well, maybe I'll stop into this place, Chabad House. And I see this rabbi who had this long, strangling beard, and this is not for me. And I went up to him, but there was this book called The Source by James Michener. And in it, if I am not mistaken, there's a line that says, "If you know the Torah, you know everything, because everything is found in the Torah." So I walked up to this rabbi and I said, I heard that if you know the Torah, you know everything, because everything is found in the Torah. I want you to teach me Torah. So he said, "Okay, come back on Wednesday, we'll have a class for you." And I came back on Wednesday, had a class. It was, I got to tell you, remarkable. It wasn't a sermon, it was just simply the text of the Torah, and translating it, and very, very little explanation. And you could ask, like, well, what excited you so much about what you had learned? And I said, I felt that generally in the world, people call things the truth. I don't mean like lying or telling the truth, but things like are real. Maybe use the word reality, that these are really real things. And in fact, in actuality, they're not real, and they don't give you any real value. And but I felt that about the Torah, because we have 5 senses: hearing, smelling, tasting,
seeing,
whatever they're seeing. And I can never count them. And my strongest of my 5 senses is my sense of feel. It's very strong. And I could just feel that this is the real thing. This is the first real thing that I've ever experienced. So I decided I'm going to come back every Wednesday, and I did. And I liked the rabbi, so I'm going to do what he does. I grew a beard. I started doing all the things that I thought I should be doing by now. And I was really quite into it. And about a month later, I dropped everything. I went right back down to 0. It was like too much. I couldn't keep up with myself. I wasn't ready at this point. And so I started at 0 again, and we slowly built myself up. And I would say that to anybody who wants to change your life in any way, is the first feeling is, yeah, I'm doing everything, but you have to take things slowly if you're going to make real changes in your life, because sometimes you're not ready for the whole enchilada. I guess that's the expression. Anyway, so I started building myself up. Now, in the meantime, I'm hanging around Buffalo, and here's this man who's was a concert pianist, and I honestly don't know what I was thinking. I really, really don't, and it really disappoints me to think that I didn't think. But I was putting my resume in shoe stores, to work in shoe stores. It never occurred to me that, wait, go back to the Manhattan School of Music or pursue a musical career. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking, honestly. And I had a few piano students, and one of the students took gymnastics, and I somehow got to play music to accompany her in her gymnastics. Called floor exercise, Florex. In the Olympics, you will see the Florex. And the coach liked me, so he had me make music for the entire gymnastics club. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to get rich from this. So I advertised in a magazine called The Gymnast. And I advertised myself, according to my mother's instructions, that you can call yourself anything you want as long as you can back it up. I referred to myself as the nation's foremost creator of music for women's gymnastics, even though I didn't know a blithering thing about it. But I figured I could just wing it, figure it out. And we'll stop there now. I'll pick it up in a second. So I advertised in this magazine, and I got orders. People wrote, ordered records from me because I had pressed 3 records of gymnastics music, and sales were pretty minimal. I expected to be making a ton of money from it, and just didn't. But what it did was, it got me an invitation to a competition to see who was going to be the pianist to accompany the U.S. gymnastics team to the 1976 Olympics, which were going to be in Montreal. So I went down to the competition on a Sunday morning in Houston. I don't know how I had the guts to walk in there because I didn't know a single thing about gymnastics. And in short, I won the competition. And they called me over and said, listen, we know you don't know anything about gymnastics, but if you get any experience between now, December, and the Olympics in July, you will be the guy. Now, at that point in my life, I skipped a major step, and that is my mother, my dear mother. Start over. My mother was my biggest fan. I never played out anywhere if my mother wasn't there. She just really was a big supporter of mine, to say the least. Financially, when I was paying for my piano lessons, we were so poor when I grew up, it was pathetic. There were times when food was a question. And she was able to, working in a drugstore, she made $1 an hour, and my piano lessons were $2 a half an hour. And then I graduated to a bigger teacher who was $3 a half an hour. And I remember my parents sitting at the kitchen table saying, can we afford the extra $1? And so she was just such a big fan of mine. And I cavalierly said to her that I want to become Shomer Shabbat, which is English for cannot play on Friday night, which is English for you may as well forget your piano career. And it broke my mother's heart, I must admit. I don't know how I could have avoided telling her this, but I did. And I put a pencil to it, and it was about 20 years while we had an icy relationship. And I can understand how my mother felt. She put so much into me, and I just like tossed it away and put my resume in shoe stores. Well, so I won this competition, and they said that if I get any experience between, I said this already, any experience between December and July in a national gymnastics meet, I will be the guy. And I thought to myself, this will put me back into my mother's good stead forever. I will be on international television. It's totally amazing. And then I looked at the schedule of upcoming gymnastics meets that I could appear in, and there was only one, and it was the first night of Passover, when you're not allowed to, a Jewish person is not allowed to play the piano. So it came down like this. On one hand, I can be on international television. On the other hand, you're Jewish. You can't play first night of Passover. Yeah, but it's only like 10 minutes. I can just do it real quick and close my eyes. It doesn't work that way. You can't. It's impossible. There's no way out. So I had to make that choice. And the other thing was, my mother will be happy for the rest of her life. She could tell all her friends, my son was on international television. So I had to make a choice. So what was the choice I made was, I chose not to play. And that July, when I was watching it on television, how did I feel? I was a little jealous because I knew the guy who was playing, and I should have been the guy playing, but them's the breaks. For the next 6 years, I made a living from making music for women's gymnastics. So I had calls from girls all over the world to put together a customized piece just for them and send it out. It was one of the best music gigs I until this day. It was just really, really good. And suddenly the World Gymnastics Federation decided that they don't want piano music anymore, they want orchestral music, and I was out of business instantly. We had just bought a house, just had our third child, and I have no income, none whatsoever. I don't know what I'm going to do. suddenly, fortunately, like amazingly, incredibly, there was a kosher dairy company, a dairy distributorship, who was making all their products in the Buffalo area. And because of a strike of the air traffic controllers, there were no flights for like 2 weeks. And they needed a local guy to be their representative. And I was the only one available. So I got this job to be sort of a manager of a dairy company, a kosher dairy company. Well, I kept that job for 14 years. And the name of the company is Mahadum Dairy. And I got to tell you, seriously, people can when you can look back at life and think, perhaps a person will think of all the people who ever wronged you, but I can tell you this, the owners of that company saved my neck. They were saints, that's all I can say. We had a relationship like brothers, really. It was an amazing 14 years. In the meantime, we decided to move to Toronto. Oh yeah, I didn't tell you, I got married.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, but I don't know where I fit into the picture.
Okay, when that 6-year period of gymnastics music was, that's basically when Chaya and I got married, 1970.
No, that's not correct. We were already married. We already had a baby.
Okay, sometime in between. If you really need to know, I can do some research where all these things come together. But anyway, we got married. There's no question about that. And got married, had one baby, then another, and then another, and then another. Finally, ended up with 12. Anyway, so our oldest child outgrew his school in Buffalo, Jewish school. And so I had this really good job. I mean, the company really depended on me, and I really depended on them. And so we had to move. We had to go to a place that had a school for my kids. And it was either Cleveland or Toronto. And I chose Toronto, and it was a really, really good choice. I had something to say, but I forgot what it was. Maybe I'll think of it. Anyway, so we moved to Toronto. And about 5 years before we moved, which was now, we're looking at 1985, perhaps 84, I hadn't played professionally in so long. In Buffalo, if you got one gig a year, that was a good year. And many years I didn't get that gig. And talk about, it got more and more depressing. Honestly, my depression was growing by the day. I needed to play. I knew I could, but just there was no outlet, and I'm stuck in this excellent job. So I got a call from one of my ex-gymnasts, her parents, said, "My daughter's, this is one of a changing point in my life. My daughter's having a Sweet 16 party, and she wants you to play the music for it." I said, "Listen, I don't know the music for a 16-year-old. I was so down on myself, guys. I had no faith in myself whatsoever." And I said, "Listen, I don't know any of the songs a 16-year-old would know." So they said, no, we want you to play. I said, "Okay, I'll tell you what. Make a list of 10 songs. If I know the majority, I'll come and play." And I knew the majority, fortunately. So I came and played, and I must have played for the girls there at the party for like 5 minutes, and they all went downstairs to giggle with each other, or whatever girls do at a Sweet 16 party. And the parents, who are really classy people, sat on the couch, and I played just for them for about 2 or 3 hours. And I saw like, hey, I can still play. I can still affect people. And I decided I'm not giving up piano, and we're going to do something about it. So when we moved to Toronto, very, very, very interesting. The day that we moved to Toronto, the very first phone call, that came into our house was a rabbi in Detroit asking me to make a concert in Detroit. I said, I'm taking this as a sign that we're moving up. We're going straight up. So, but unfortunately I did, or fortunately, it was a great job. I had to commute around 100 miles from Toronto to Buffalo, like 3 days a week. And it was just so wearing on me. Sometimes I would sleep in the back seat of the car, and I have one of my employees call me at 4 o'clock in the morning and wake me up so I can finish the last 30 miles. It was just completely draining me physically. And but I'll tell you about my father. My father had an incredible work ethic, and it made me not afraid to work. And that's what kept me going throughout all those years. And I eventually got to the point where I just can't do it anymore. And I told my bosses, so that in itself is a long story, and to show their sainthood, but I'm not going to go through it. I told them that I have to leave, and I'm going to start an agency of State Farm Insurance. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. By the way, interestingly enough, that jingle was written by Barry Manilow. Anyway, so speaking of Barry Manilow, let me play something by him. And then we're going to talk about State Farm and that period of my life. Okay. Just to describe what my life was like, I did start playing with some bands in Toronto, and I enjoyed it a lot, I must say. It was a pleasure for me not to be the boss. Like I was the boss of the dairy and had employees under me. It was a pleasure having someone say, play this key, this time, whatever, and I didn't have to think about a thing. But there would be times on a Sunday, I'll never forget this, I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning on the side of a road someplace on Sunday morning, work all day till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, drive 2 hours back to Toronto, in time to put a tuxedo on, to play at 6 o'clock, and finish the gig at midnight, get in the car, drive back to Buffalo again, and repeat the whole process over. I mean, it was a lot of work, but you know, I wouldn't be me if all these things hadn't happened, which I will describe some more in a minute. But we are the sum of all the experiences we've had in our lives, and you think if I could just take all the bad out, then I would just have a sweet life. But I'm skipping a couple steps, and I'm going to come back. I felt in my piano playing that I had hit a wall, and I couldn't go past this wall. My playing was lousy, and it just didn't sound good to me. So I found a jazz player, and I played for him, and he says to me, I can tell you what your problem is. You're not playing any wrong notes. You have to play notes that are a little bit sour like this. What would be an example? That contains in the middle of it. And when you play it right, you don't notice the note sound. And he explained, he said that if you take pepper and put it in your mouth, oh, it's hard, it's bitter, but if you take that pepper and put it in a chicken soup, it makes the soup. And likewise, a life that has no problems at all is just vanilla. And it probably doesn't even exist, to tell you the truth. But it's these problems that we don't ask for, we wish them not to happen, but at the end, they make a life. And so all my hard work in the years of depression, of living in Buffalo and never playing, they all add up to, I guess, the ability for me to express certain things that I may not have been able to express if it hadn't been so. Okay, so I'm going to be starting an agency of State Farm Insurance October 1st, 1994. And in the summer, just before that, one of our sons was in summer camp in Montreal. And we went up there, and it was visiting day, and most people have seen the movie Home Alone. It was time for us to go. And so we're all walking up the hill, the whole bunch of us, and my wife says to me, we have some Pinchas, that we called him Pinchy. She says, where's Pinchy? I don't see him. Oh, he's probably down at the beach. I'll go down and get him. Meanwhile, I started talking to a friend of mine, and we hadn't met in a long time, and just another one, and all of a sudden it's like, I can't find him. So I came back hoping that he had been found, and he wasn't found. Went up to the bunk area. At this point, I'm starting to get like a little worried. I'm going from literally door to door in every bunk. Pinchy here? Pinchy, are you here? Pinchy, are you here? He's not responding. I come back down and I go to the camp director. I said, listen, we're in the middle of north of Montreal. It's late at night, and when it gets dark here, we're going to have a serious problem. I need a search party to go out and look for him. So I don't think he really put that much effort into it, didn't take it as seriously as I was taking it. And all of a sudden I see all the children in the camp being herded into the synagogue or a rec area, whatever you call that building. I said, good, they're going to be search party looking for Pinchy. And I'm standing there and I see down on the beach like a circle of people. And it's like one of those things that you know what you're seeing even though you don't see it. I knew what was inside that circle. So I go down to the beach and I sort of poke my head in, and there's Pinchy laid out on the sand. And I thought, I really, I haven't said this in years, I thought I really had an in with our Creator. And we understood each other. And if I need a favor, He'll do it for me. And I went down to the beach and said, God, if you bring him back to life, if I have any reward for anything I've done, I will give half of it back to you. I'll pay half of it back right now to just bring him back. Went back to the circle. They're still trying all these things that EMTs do. I went back to the beach. This really, really is true in detail. And I said, God, okay, this is it. If I have done anything good in my life, I'm willing to pay it all through any reward that's coming to me, but I want him back. I want him back. Went to the hospital with him, and went to the hospital with him. I sat there, and I'll never. I mean, obviously, I can't ever forget this. I sat next to him. It was just Pinchy and I, and I said to him, Pinchy, and I'll ask this question for the rest of my life. Pinchy, why did you go in the water? Why did you go in the water, Pinchy? Doctor came out and said, you brought him in and we're doing something. Can you listen? There's nothing there. We can't pull him out. So I had to call my family and break the news to them. And drove back to Toronto. There were tons of people waiting for us. And we had the funeral later that day. And a week later, tons of people came to our house over the course of that week. And at the end of the week, we went back to the cemetery again and put up a gravestone. And my son, one of my sons, no names mentioned, he, before we left for the cemetery, for the stone ceremony, he handed me a piece of paper. Now, what this piece of paper was you remember when you were in grade 6, you take a piece of paper, fold it this way, and they say, what's your favorite color? And you go, 1, 2, 3, red, and you fold it open, and it says something silly. So he said, my son gave it to me. My son at that time was like 5. And I said, what is this for? And he said, oh God. He said, this is, I want you to give this, sorry. I want you to give this to Pinchy so that, I can't believe I'm saying this. I want you to give this to Pinchy so that he'll have something to play with. There's a point where laughing and crying meet. It's called hysteria. And I can tell you, that's where I was at. I told him, I'll ask the rabbi. Ask him what we should do with it. So I went up to the rabbi, there was some ceremony, whatever it was. And I showed him this, and I grabbed the rabbi by his lapels, and I buried my face in his chest, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried. And then we came home, and I announced to the family, guys, when you're at the bottom of the hole, stop digging. We have only one way to go, and we're going up. And this is it. And we did it. To give you an idea about my bosses back in Derry, one of I called, he was actually the first call. After I called Chaya, I called him. I mean, we were really close. We were like, I'm telling you, like brothers. And I told his wife, and she became hysterical on the phone. She says, I can't believe this. Last night I had a dream that someone drowned. And my boss flew up to Toronto for the funeral the next day. But like 3 years later, his daughter got engaged. And they set the date for the wedding, and it turned out to be the same day that we would not be able to go to the wedding because it was the anniversary of Pinchy's death. So he changed the date of the wedding so that I would be able to go, which gives you an idea of how close we were. Anyway, from that point on, we have gone up. We have. We've traveled around the world. The State Farm deal was really, really good. I left the company a couple of years ago. Again, I wouldn't be me if all this hadn't happened. And I'll play the piano for you. But one thing I ask from everybody, do not feel sorry for me. I'm not telling you this story because I want you to feel bad for me. I'm telling you the story for one reason and one reason only. Really, one reason and one reason only. Everybody's got problems. Nobody doesn't have problems. Nobody leaves this world without some problems, sometimes big problems, things that you seemingly are insurmountable. And that is what we all have in common. And unfortunately, those things make a life, but got to live with them. Okay, I'll play something for you. So that is, in general terms, my life. And what do we do now? Well, to tell you the truth, I play the piano for you. And it's a privilege every single night we did show, this is 372? Yeah, 372 nights in a row, practically. And God gave me this gift of being able to take whatever is in my heart, lay it on the keys, and somehow that enters your heart. And for many, many years, I said to myself, the reason why I play music is so that people will think how great I am. But I gave that up a long time ago, long time ago. I know that I'm able to speak through the music and say things that words are not sufficient. And that's why I'm here every night. And I'm very glad to be here. And I'm really glad that you're here too. And there was this commentator on the radio, Rush Limbaugh, who passed away a very little while ago. And he felt a connection between his listeners and him. And it was, when I heard him speaking to his listeners, I knew what he meant, because I feel close to all of you. I do. It's the strangest thing, but really, I'm so glad to be with you every night, and I'm glad you're here every night. And let's continue. Okay. No more sadness. Not allowed to be sad, because I'm not sad. I only told you this so that just to emphasize that everybody's got problems, and for whatever reason, God chose this problem for this one and this problem for this one. And so here we are, smiling again. So have a nice night, and thank you very, very much for listening.
And tomorrow is Tuesday night, so we have our live concert in the home. So anyone that wants to come, anybody that knows somebody that would like to come, please pass on the information. And then we will connect after 9 o'clock with you.
Right.
Right?
Just to let you know, just
in case we're a few minutes late, whatever.
we are limited to 100 people. So if you're the 101st person, you're going to have to stand out on the deck. What can I say? As I've said a million times to many people around the world, life is very serious, but don't take it too seriously. Bye-bye.